Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re. Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Lama Live, the live stream event of Lama Sultram Alione. It feels so wonderful to gather together, even though Lama Sultram is currently in personal retreat and unable to join us today. However, I'm convinced that her commitment to deepening her own practice in this special way nurtures us all. And we are truly honored to have a marvelous guest teacher with us in her absence. But before I introduce this esteemed scholar, I rejoice in connecting with all of you joining us from around the world. And it would be so lovely if you could say hello in the chat. Each time, it's just wonderful to feel your presence and to know that you're here to benefit from the teachings, but also from the connection we share. Thank you for being here. At Taramandala, we are committed to being a welcoming, open, and safe community for practitioners and students of all cultures, races, religions, genders, sexual orientations, age, ability, and circumstances. I'm Dreame, and I'm connecting with you from Poland, where everything is in bloom, bringing such uplifting energy, I would say, finally. And my heart is filled with absolute joy to share that we have Professor Miranda Shaw with us today. Miranda is a Buddhist scholar renowned for her groundbreaking work on women in Vajrayana Buddhism, which is transforming and impacting Buddhism globally. Her renowned book, Passionate Enlightenment, has been translated into 7 languages. Additionally, she is the author of Buddhist Goddesses of India, a comprehensive and fascinating historic and iconographical study based on extensive research and deep engagement with the divine feminine. Professor Shaw is currently completing a companion volume, Buddhist Goddesses of Tibet and Nepal, and writing a book on Vajrayana dance to be titled Dancing Enlightenment, Tantric Buddhist Dance of Nepal. Before I hand it over to Miranda, let's raise bodhicitta, heartfelt intention to be together for the benefit of all beings. Knowing the heart essence of my being and that of all beings, to be primordially awake and manifesting a ceaseless compassion, I cultivate the intention to practice in order to single-handedly place all beings, my parents, in the state of the Great Mother. Please join me in giving Miranda such a luminous, inspiring woman whose empowering work has impacted the path of so many of us. Over to you, dear Miranda. Thank you.
Thank you, Dreame. That was a beautiful introduction and raising of intention. A few minutes with a kind of centering meditation. and do a few breaths, breathing in with the sound of ha and out with the sound of sa. Just center with our breath. Then we can do breathing meditation from Thich Nhat Hanh. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. The present moment is all there is, and it is a wonderful moment. So 2 full breaths. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. The present moment is all there is, and it is a wonderful moment. And finally, I'd like to share an affirmation or that I learned yesterday that has been so meaningful for me. It's a very simple speaking to ourselves, and it's a direct, well, I'll tell you what it is and then say something about it after we've done it. Say to yourself, mentally or out loud, but say, I love you. I'm listening. I love you. I'm listening. So that gets my cells sparkling in a positive way. And it's a nice antidote. It reminds me of the Vajrayana quality, prized quality of divine pride, which is not an egoic state. It's not an arrogant state, but it's confidence in who one is and confidence in worthiness, because a sense of unworthiness it's an obstacle on the path, and it's an obstacle to open-hearted sharing with others and open communication. And so sometimes I take a day of fasting from self-criticism, and it surprises me how many times I'm kind of, correcting myself. Oh, I could have done that better or done more or sooner or anything. And it's not helpful. The screen is opposite, so I'm thrown off by that. So instead of trying to stop doing something, I think it's positive to just say, I love you. I'm listening. And also the tantric view of the emotions and handling the passions is to attend to them when they arise and not comment, not have a conversation with the energies, but to let them arise and to feel the energy and then learn to deconstruct what we think is causing it and just use the energy to fulfill our destiny or be present with ourselves, with the moment, with what's happening. So my title today, Journey into the Heart of Vajrayana, I changed to Journey into the Dancing Heart of Vajrayana, because Vajrayana has many hearts. There's a healing heart, there's a poetic heart, and others. We can even say a singing heart. So I decided to explore one today. What first set me on my explorations of Vajrayana in this lifetime was the Tibetan paintings that I saw in an art exhibit when I was a sophomore in college. And the paintings were filled with these little figures, the female figures dancing, leaping, flying, unfettered by clothing, clothed only with their billowing hair and their delicate ornaments of flowers and bone. They had vigorous poses of, yogic flexibility, and their eyes were blazing with intensity. And they appeared to revel in freedom of every kind and mastery. And I wondered, what kind of women could have inspired such images? I consulted tantric literature, secondary sources, scholarly sources, and found that very little credence was given to a possible connection between the female figures in the art and human women. And it was even denied that there was any connection. Or any honor for the women. And one quote that sums it up is, "The goal of tantric practice is to destroy the female." So I wondered if I did some research that I might not find something different. And many people assured me, other scholars, that I would not. So that set me on a long path that set the course of my education and really my entire kind of intellectual, scholarly, and also personal journey to the present time. I went to, I learned Sanskrit and Tibetan, studied art history for the iconography, then did Buddhist studies, and finally set out to India to do my field research among, in the archives of India and among the Tibetan communities there. So my research took me to, into the tropical, heat of Calcutta and an unheated hermitage in the Himalayas in the winter, and looking through all kinds of archives, Tibetan and, Sanskrit, Indian. And what drew me on my search was the facial expressions, the faces of the women, Dakinis in the paintings, and it just called to me and said, "Look for us, you'll find us, we're here." And that was a very powerful summons to carry me through years of research and travel. So when I first arrived in India, I had a thought to go to visit some yogini temples. And the yogini temples are round. They have no roof. In the text that I had read, I had found that Vajrayana, that women were very important in the founding of Vajrayana. They introduced some of the practices that are part of the living tradition today. And I read of gatherings of women where they would gather in a circle and, pass around a skull bowl and take turns, voicing ecstatic poetry, singing and also dancing. A man might be admitted to their presence if he was deemed worthy, or each woman could bring a man. But these gatherings were very secret, and no one was allowed to attend without their permission. And there's an interesting story in the somewhat contemporaneous literature about a man who happened upon one of these gatherings in the forest. He was drawn by the light, and when he looked in, he wasn't allowed to attend, and so he was, I don't know, turned to stone or something. I forget what his fate was, but it was not a happy one. So that emphasizes how sacred these gatherings were. And the meaning of sacred, the original meaning, is to be set apart. And that's something that is set apart, meaning that you must have a certain qualification to participate, or a heightened state of experience, vision, wisdom is going to be accessible. And so you must be prepared. And that's what these gatherings were. And so it says they took place in cremation grounds where people are not going to venture at night, or a forest clearing, or a yogini temple. So here I was in India, and I had a chance to visit some yogini temples in Orissa. They really weren't on the tourist menu, but I was thinking of hiring getting a car. And that night I had a dream of a woman's face, and an Indian woman, and her eyes were just boring into mine. And they were exactly the eyes of the women in the paintings. And she was saying, come to the yogini temples. This is where we practice. And that morning, after breakfast, getting ready to depart for the day, another woman who works on, I won't say her name, another scholar who became a friend, companion, mentor, we both said we were thinking of going to the yogini temples. And we both had the same dream the night before. So we went to the yogini temples. According to books, archaeologists, anthropologists, art history, the temples are deserted and not in use anymore. But that's because scholars don't go at night, on a full moon, on a new moon. So the temples are round and have a low entrance, and the walls are just high enough that people can't see what's going on inside. And then the insides of the temples are lined with relief sculptures of yoginis in various postures of dance, and with different, heads of different animals and different implements representing their powers. And I subsequently found a passage in a text on a yogic tradition that was in the same kind of stew as Vajrayana during that period. And it talked about a practice where women gather, others can gather, but the women in the circle dance and transform into the divine yoginis, that people can then have this, divine vision, have darshan, as they call, so visual communion with the divine, and, make offerings, worship, and have that heightened state of consciousness. And many wondrous experiences happened in India and also in Nepal. And I had never really explained it to myself, but Veena Rampal, a dancer, recently posted on her Facebook that there are many portals in India, and that is places where the barrier between, you could say, the sacred and the profane, or the barriers to the realm of visionary experience, the realm of, vision, and we would say magic and miracles, is very thin, and that if you're prepared, you will experience that magic. And I did experience it many times. So, and I believe that dream was one example. It wasn't the only instance where I had the same dream as someone with whom I was working. So the sum of my research was that I found many women, gurus, enlightened masters, teachers, in many cases that were the teachers of what we, acknowledge as the founders, the founding fathers of Vajrayana. And I wrote about their teachings, their practices in my book, Passionate Enlightenment, which was my dissertation. And many of you may be familiar with it, but some may not be. And they had a very female affirming worldview, many practices to affirm women, that women themselves needed to acknowledge their divinity, ways for men to honor, and women on the path become spiritual companions on the path, practices they can do together to use their intimacy and relationship on the path to enlightenment. It's a very vast subject. And then Passionate Enlightenment was recently re-released in this Princeton classic form. And so they use these more subdued colors because, Princeton classics are supposed to be very dignified. But I added a preface to this that answers a question that's long been raised about Vajrayana as to whether it's heteronormative in its use of male and female deities and male and female, pairings of qualities, of objects, of different, at different level of even, concepts. And so I did a lot of research and addressed it in the preface to this, and also did a Lama Live where I addressed this back in, I think, June of last year. So after I had written about the women of Vajrayana, I wanted to, I saw that they had been practicing, female deities, Tara, Vajrayogini, and I decided that I wanted to learn more about the female deities, because mostly they were mentioned in museum catalogs identifying works of art, and there was always just the most snippet, like 1 or 2 sentences about what a given female deity, who she was, what she represented. Tara was the consort of Avalokiteshvara. It may come as a surprise. So I set forth to do research and possibly write, I thought, a short book. I didn't know if I'd get more than a pamphlet on the Buddhist goddesses, what I'm calling, goddesses. And because so little was written about them, I thought, well, how important have goddesses been in Buddhism, really? And then I started to do my research in Nepal, and I was completely surrounded by goddess imagery, goddess images, paintings, statues, rituals, processions, temples, sacred places. And I realized that as a living tradition, goddesses are pervasive. And the same was true when I spent time in the Tibetan communities. And so my little book, I was going to write a book called Buddhist Goddesses of India, Tibet, and Nepal. And it got so long that I had to divide it into 2 manuscripts. And so the first one, Buddhist Goddesses of India, which Dreamy mentioned, is like 600 pages, and that's India. So I'm genuinely on the verge of finishing Buddhist goddesses of Tibet and Nepal. One of the things that had intrigued me, or that I had noticed, was that many of the deities, the dakinis, masters, siddhas, are portrayed as dancing. And I also saw that in the written texts, the biographies of women, that some of the female gurus were dancers, that dancers were among the group to be honored in Vajrayana ritual, and to be desired as consorts, or to be included in this realm. There's also a passage in the Vajra Tantra that says a tantric practitioner must always, ever and always, sing and dance. The song is mudra. No, the song is mantra. The dance is mudra. And so I was getting a sense that there's dance in the Vajrayana world, but where is it? So one day when I was practicing, I started to study Bharatanatyam, and when I was practicing in a room lined with Tibetan paintings, I noticed that some of my poses and gestures were directly mirrored in the paintings. And I became convinced there must have been a tantric dance tradition. So through a series of serendipitous events, I discovered the existence of a living dance tradition in Nepal. And so I set forth for Kathmandu in 1992 and had good fortune to find Ratnakaji Vajracharya, who was one of the Vajrayana masters there that was willing to share his tradition with outsiders. And it turns out that they have an esoteric dance tradition, which they call Charya Nritya, which is dance as a spiritual discipline. And they've held it in secrecy for centuries. And they were not really willing to share it with outsiders. They practiced it. It was performed only in Vajrayana rituals, in the closed courtyard of a temple, in a tent that was set up, or at a place that was deserted, so that it could be held in secrecy. But Ratnakaji was willing to teach me. And so I went to him, or he said, he would help me with my research. So I went to him with my dictionary in hand, and I was very eager to translate whatever texts the guru might procure. And he told me, there are no texts. You have to learn to dance. So I realized that this is a performative tradition that is transmitted through movement, not through words. And so the classes which were held, so he said I could study with his son, Prajal Ratna, who I think was 22, 24 at that time, but he'd already been dancing for many years and was consummately artful. And when I saw Prajal demonstrate some of the movements, it was a revelation to me, because I was very familiar with Vajrayana deities at that point. I thought I understood them very well. And yet when I saw him make a mudra or do a movement, and I realized within that movement was the mudra that I saw in the art. And I realized that mudra in the art is part of a movement. It wasn't a static, symbolic gesture. It was part of a movement. And so this separation between mind and body started to dissolve. And I started to understand the deities not simply as lofty beings, but as qualities of movement and qualities of energy, and that those could be accessed through the dance. So I want to share with you today an insight into how the dance serves as a method of, as a spiritual discipline and as a mode of transformation in Vajrayana. And Charya dance, it's called Charya dance, figures as a form of deity yoga. And so practitioners, deity yoga is a standard, very central Vajrayana practice. So to explain the difference between seated and moving deity yoga, consider Tara, with whom many of you are familiar, and of course the namesake of Tara Mandala. And in seated deity yoga, you envision Tara rising out of her seed syllable, condensing from sparkling light, radiating light rays throughout the universe, and dissolving into emptiness. It's a dynamic visualization. Tara is vibrant and alive, but she remains seated. So Charya dance brings the question, how does Tara move? What would it mean to move through space, through the world, among beings, as Tara does? What rhythms and gestures do her qualities generate? How does it feel to gaze through the eyes of love at all living beings? In Charya dance, deity yoga becomes a fully embodied exploration. So to give an example, I will use Avalokiteshvara, one of the most beloved bodhisattvas in the entire Buddhist world, known as Chenrezig in Tibet, Lokeshvara in Nepal, and then in female form Kuan Yin in China, Japan. So compassion has many expressions, but Avalokiteshvara represents compassion in its most readily recognizable form as kind of gentle kindness, gentleness and kindness. So tender. So his dance is very slow and softly flowing. There are no southern movements or sharp turns. And so I learned patience from the dance of Lokeshvara. So let me here it is. So I'll read you about his dance and explain how the relationship between the movements and the quality sought. So Lokeshvara dances fluidly, fully at ease, with a spirit of serenity. His body moves through space, tracing curving paths and large circles. He blends harmoniously into the selfless flow of reality, offering no resistance and meeting no resistance. Short, measured steps brush the ground so softly that the bodhisattva appears to be gliding. The movement is slow and rarely changes pace. The unhurried pace and light steps convey the presence of one who is fully attuned to the pulsing strands of the loom of life, ready to respond to the precious lives in its shimmering weave, alert for any tremor or prayer of need. So this is a passage from my upcoming book on dancing enlightenment. Seeing Lokeshvara dance so slowly and steadily, so patiently, is like watching a mountain flow. The slow pace conveys infinite mindfulness. He cannot sacrifice a moment to moving without heed. Everywhere he looks, there is a healing need, a broken spirit, a broken heart, a broken wing, to inspire, to comfort, to mend. For the work of compassion, there is no end. His heart overflows with the powerful love that can make what is broken whole. His heart is a temple bell, struck at all times from every direction, with every thrum and throb of sorrow. It sounds a single tone, ringing with compassion. To move slowly and smoothly is remarkably demanding, requiring strength and stability. Any doubt, hesitation, or lapse in concentration disrupts the smooth, graceful flow. The steady movement proceeds from profound serenity. The Bodhisattva understands reality and is deeply at peace, knowing that for every form of suffering, there is a form of release. He can move with equanimity through heart-rending realms of suffering to deliver nectar of hope, healing, and consolation, confident in the happy destiny of every living being. Lokeshvara moves as gently as a cloud, as if floating weightless, untethered by the burden of self-preoccupation. The Bodhisattva brings lightness and buoyancy to the mission of liberating beings. So one of the qualities of the Bodhisattva is one of the prime virtues of Buddhism, which is patience, kshanti, one of the 6 perfections of a Bodhisattva, the transcendent qualities. But how does one become patient? The concept of patience may be a cherished ideal, but obstacles to patience are lodged in the body as well as the mind. It is difficult to move slowly, steadily, and gracefully in the dance and in life. So the slowness of the dance is intrinsic to patience. Patience is the willingness, impatience is a sense of kind of hurry or resistance. And so the slowness of the dance, the slowness of the movement is a way to cultivate patience and to hear to move selflessly with the flow of reality. So I will say, as this state of mind, he travels afar, dispensing his grace to all living beings through infinite space, moving softly, making not a sound, in order to hear the quietest cries for help, the whisper the whimper, the falling tear in the night. Lokeshvara moves softly, as if floating on a sea of serenity. His feet touch gently down. His motion appears effortless as he flows smoothly through every transition without struggle or hesitation. He meets no resistance because he offers no resistance. Knowing all phenomena to be unreal, he knows that suffering cannot last. Like all things, it comes into existence and just as surely will pass. However fearsome it may seem, it is no more real than a cloud or a dream. The heartbreak will be a fading memory. The body will be cast off and forgotten. The burden will be a mere bubble drifting away on a stream. He moves slowly as a leaf unfolds, as a frond unfurls, as a lotus blooms. Understanding emptiness, he knows that everything is flowing. So learning or doing the dance of Lokeshvara, is a way to become more patient and hence compassionate. Patience is a part of compassion in daily life. So, and this is an example from my own experience. So, patience is necessary for open-hearted, discerning response rather than egoic reaction. And so the slow pacing and refined feeling tone of the dance requires and hence summons patience. There's an integral connection between the movement and the quality sought, because the quality is a state of being and not simply a state of mind or of body. Every mental and emotional state also has this visceral, this physiological component. And it is possible to have an intellectual understanding of patience, but the obstacles to patience are lodged in the body as well as the mind, in the form of kind of restlessness, impulsivity, quickness to anger, or whatever neurobiological brew of urgency fuels our habitual reactions. And so when through the slow movements of the dance makes it possible to bring that patience into daily life, because the bodily dimensions of patience become familiar terrain, this kind of an inner landscapes whose contours have been intimately explored. Having a somatic reference for the presence of patience, we can more readily return to it and become increasingly uncomfortable with the tensions that mark its absence. So whereas patience has like an expansive, flowing quality, a failure of patience is attended by bodily sensations, such as kind of a tightening, a hardening, shrinking into a small sense of self. So we can meet a call for patience by following the somatic route held in kinesthetic memory. How to soften into gentleness, release rigidity into fluidity, and allow a flow of empathy. There's something in my face, distracting, okay. At its esoteric so following A bodily experience, or focusing on bodily experience, provides access to our awareness and inner life on many levels. So Tantra envisions embodiment as a psychophysical continuum of corporeal, emotional, mental, and spiritual layers that are subtly interwoven and mutually interactive. Attention or effort aimed at any one of these, any portion of this continuum, resonates through the whole. The somatic exploration of moving slowly, for example, may reveal a need for psychological resolution or emotional healing, especially of issues that lie beyond verbal and cognitive reach. They could be experiences from early in life when we were in a pre-verbal stage, or experiences, traumatic experiences, intense experiences that became lodged in our body and blocked off from conscious awareness as a survival strategy at certain times of our development, our psychological and emotional development. Also, because they come from past lives. And so those, we can say, buried experiences are or can be accessible to bodily awareness and a dialogue of movement. So honing in on a site or pervasive sensation of resistance to empathy may reveal a pattern of reactivity that one can trace to the source, moving into and through it. Or one may remember occasions of shaming, threat, or attack that stimulated the formation of a defensive armoring. At the subtlest level, at the subtlest and most esoteric level, the Vajrayana dance is a method of karmic purification. So resistance to, we could say, compassion, resistance to patience is present in the form of, or any divine quality, is present in the form of what are known as karmic knots, or sites of density or blockages where a free flow of vital life energies has been disrupted. At this level, repressed, unresolved, and traumatic experiences of many lifetimes are stored within the body as largely unconscious motivating forces that distort perception and inhibit spontaneous, open-hearted responsiveness until the karma is resolved through a meditative or yogic practice, such as tantric dance. So the flowing quality of the softer movements, the gentler movements, reveals a path, opens our mind, body, our spirit to infinite flow. That whereas the ordinary or unenlightened mind kind of ever searches for fixity and finds comfort in stability, safety, and boundaries, compassion flows in a field of fluidity. So in the process of dancing, one boundary after another, one layer after another of ego clinging and illusion falls away until we forgo our certitudes, our mental and conceptual solid ground. At root, our separation of self and other, so that we may attune to the hearts of others and resonate with the living pulse of the world. So having moved so slowly and gaining access to patience at that level has given me a way to move into situations without a self-centered agenda, and to be open, to what's happening, and to see if I can participate kind of positively and constructively to the needs of that moment, of that event, of that occasion, that group. And when things arise that would cause me to feel impatient, I have a choice. Like, I can't fool myself anymore and say, I don't know how to be patient, right? Because I have learned that. I have learned that visceral, kinesthetic route. And so I have a choice, whether to fuel that blaze. It gives you a choice. And practitioners of the Vajrayana dance know that they're not producing the qualities through the dance. They're not, fabricating them, as it were, but they're finding the qualities, these divine qualities within. Because that is a central premise of Vajrayana, that we are already, divine, sacred, pure in essence. And so the dances provide ways to kind of discover those qualities by making the movements of, the divinities. So discovering the dancing heart of Vajrayana was very important for me, because Vajrayana, at its root, it is commonly said, is a path of transforming one's body, speech, and mind into those of a Buddha. And so tantric dance is a way of transforming one's bodily presence on earth in the direction of, Buddhahood. And to have the body of a Buddha is not to have a particular form of a body, but a body that is fully resourced to liberate others. A body that is free of the self-centered impediments, that is free of the karmic impurities, and therefore can bestow blessings and comfort and inspiration, nourishment, spiritual sustenance, and with every step, with every word, with every deed, to be an enlightening presence on the earth. I'm prepared to stop there, if that's, looking for my clock. Yep. So Dreame, do you want to step in, see if there's any, pressing questions or what's arising? I'm patiently away.
I feel that everybody was listening to you so attentively, and there are currently no questions, but I wish we could just go on and on with you like this for another hour or longer. How about we dedicate the merit right now, and I'll speak about another opportunity to connect with you. Does that sound okay?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. This has been truly profound and genuine. Deepest gratitude to you, Miranda, for sharing your time, wisdom, and passion with us today, and for allowing us into your experience and space. What a blessing to receive this today. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Dreamy.
Thank you. And so, having said that, I warmly invite you all to join us for a very special discussion with Professor Miranda Shaw, which will be held virtually in August as part of the Christina Monson Memorial Lecture Series. Christina, a great yogini and translator, passed away in November 2023. Miranda will share her own findings on the myriad ways women are regarded, treated, and celebrated as living goddesses in Vajrayana settings. If this resonates with you, please join us online on Saturday, August 17th. I'll share the link to register in the chat shortly. I'm definitely gonna be there. And now I want to thank each and every one of you, our dear audience, for, yes, your attentive listening and meaningful presence, always. It's your dedication that makes these gatherings possible. And we're just so very honored to have you as part of our Global Sangha. Thank you. And speaking of Global Sangha, we have a Sangha-wide virtual gathering coming up to honor Sagadawa Duchen, the anniversary of birth, enlightenment, and parinirvana of Buddha Shakyamuni. The special event hosted on the Taramandala network will be led by one of the Taramandala senior teachers, Lopin Deborah Quayle. You don't need prior experience or registration. And this event is open to all. There is no cost. So it's available really to everyone, but you do need to be on the Taramandala network to gain access. So mark your calendars for Thursday, May 23rd at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. It will be such a joyful occasion filled with practice and community sharing. And yes, we'll be waiting for you. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us today. May you be well, and may your practice flourish. And may we meet again and again on the path. And may all beings benefit everywhere.
Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re